Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
This is a catastrophe.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
That's what I wished for when I blew out my candle.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
The floor is yours.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Working towards the weekend. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And plenty to do here on this Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Lane Kiffin met with media yesterday. We kind of talked about some of that yesterday, but we will certainly revisit it coming up in 15 minutes. It is a What If Wednesday. We will get to that coming up in 30 minutes. Of course, our bi-weekly segment with the folks over at Oxner. Dr. Jeremy Burnham going to join us. It is, for lack of a better term, elbow season, and a lot of youth parents are concerned about the amount of pitching and what symptoms could happen as those injuries happen during baseball and softball season. So we'll talk to Dr. Burnham about a little bit of that, plus some exciting news they've got over there at Oxner. Koki Riley will be with us at 2 o'clock, 1 hour from right now. He covers the LSU baseball squad. We'll talk some LSU basketball, SEC baseball power rankings. And I'll be honest, I really try to stand by my work from 1 to 3 every day here. I try to stand by my work on LouisianaSports.net. I take pride in it. I try to do a great job. And it's not that I didn't try to do a great job this week with SEC baseball power rankings. I just don't think it's possible. It was an impossible task. So I cannot be held accountable for the power rankings that are coming your way in 90 minutes. I will give them to you, but I cannot be responsible for them because I feel great about the top 3. I feel great about the bottom 2. And 4 through 14, just shake them up and throw them on the desk. I have no idea. But I did the exercise. So we'll get to that in 90 minutes. Let's crank things up the way we do every single day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
All right, LSU beat Southern last night. It was late getting started, and it was late finishing because there was an hour rain delay, but they finished the game 16-6. And I told you yesterday that, look, I'm not going to overanalyze performances against way overmatched teams at this point in the calendar. LSU's bread is going to be buttered in the Southeastern Conference, and you're supposed to beat the tar out of Southern, and ultimately they did. So everything I give you is with the caveat that I know it's against Southern. I know it's in the midweek against a SWAC pitching staff with a 9 ERA that has a big-time losing record and has no business being on the field at the box far more often than they do. So with that said, let's talk about what we saw. Because I told you during the show yesterday that I wanted to see them play with some emotion. I wanted to see them continue to feel good about themselves offensively. Certainly want to see them go out there and throw strikes. You got to win the game. And I thought after a truly atrocious start where they fall behind 6-1 and your starting pitcher is walking some guys, and then your left fielder drops a line drive, and you don't look very good. After that, they did a good job. And I think, for me, the biggest thing in this game to talk about is the quality of the contact that LSU made. I know. It's against a bunch of 87 and 88 and 89 mile-an-hour fastballs. I know. Nobody from Southern is snapping off a breaking ball that the Chicago White Sox are just dying to draft in the first round. But there's something to the rhythm of the baseball season where hard contact tends to come and go. And LSU, for too long, wasn't hitting the ball hard. When their offense was stagnant against Sacramento State, against Northeastern, at times against overmatched teams, even Louisiana Lafayette, it wasn't like LSU was striking out a ton. It wasn't like LSU looked overmatched. It just was that they weren't hitting the ball hard enough. And ultimately, when you're in the box, you can really only control 2 things offensively. You can control what you swing at, which I thought LSU did a pretty good job of for the most part. And you can control how hard you hit it. Now, sometimes it leaves the bat at 68 miles an hour and flares over the first baseman's head for a single. And sometimes it leaves the bat at 101 and the third baseman dives and catches it. And you can't control that. Offensively, you can control what you swing at and how hard you hit it. And I asked Jay Johnson after one of their difficult days, it was a week ago. I can't remember what game, but I remember asking the question. And I remember the answer, which is the only really important thing. I said, when y'all are struggling, is it the swing decisions you're upset with or the quality of the contact that's disappointing? And he said, right now it's the quality of the contact. And as you look at this, LSU is hitting the ball harder. They left the ballpark last night 4 different times. Curiel, grand slam, was crushed. Pearson's home run flew the bleachers and left the bat at 110. And Milam homered from both sides of the plate, line drive shot to left from the right side, and more of a high, long home run over the bleacher, over the fence in right field. Those were hit very well. Dardar stung it for a triple. I thought that a lot of the contact in this game was very, very loud, and that's what you want. I thought Aaron Beatty hit his RBI single well. It was a hanging breaking ball up in the zone. It's a bad pitch, but he hammered it. I just saw more hard contact. And my feeling on this has been, for a couple of weeks, this may not be a great team. It may be a team that doesn't host a super regional. It may be a team that doesn't host a regional. It may be a team that's fighting tooth and nail down the stretch to get into the NCAA tournament. All of those may be true, but I don't think all these guys are going to hit this poorly for 56 games, or as it were, the last 40 games. I don't think Seth Dardar is going to hit 220 for the whole season, and Cade Arambidi is going to hit 240 for the whole season, and Stephen Milam's going to hit 232 for the whole season. The point goes on and on. I just don't think they're all going to do that. I don't think they're all going to perform right near the bottom of their capabilities. Guys have bad seasons all the time. One guy might not have it for a year. Bad year. But not everybody. And now you're starting to see some guys come out of it. And namely, 2 guys that are occupying spots in the lineup that have been significantly in flux all season. The 2 spots that have been in flux all year are second base and third base. You've known who your guys are in the outfield. As long as Stanfield's healthy, you got that. You know who your shortstop is, and you know who your 2 catchers are. That's not in flux. Now, first base, York's been mostly in there, but second and third have been in flux. And right now, John Pearson and Seth Dardar are those guys. Jay Johnson said last night, I like their at-bats. I think it lengthens our lineup. I feel like we can score in every inning, score 2 in every inning is what I mean by that. Seth's playing well on both sides of the ball, and I just thought we needed a jolt against Vanderbilt, and John gave us that. And you look at the statistics, and it bears that out. Since his insertion in the lineup 10 games ago, John Pearson is hitting 276, which is not a super loud average, but batting average is not everything. He's got 2 doubles, 3 homers, 13 runs driven in, and he's walked 7 times and been hit by pitches twice. He's reached 17 times in 10 games. He's also got 3 homers and 13 runs driven in. So he's reaching base and he's slugging. The OPS is way, way higher than just the 276 batting average. He's impacting the game. He's impacting the baseball. You see him big grand slam over the weekend. You see him huge home run over the seats in left field there. And then you've seen early in games 2 out, base hit up the middle that you saw in a weekend series against an SEC team. So Pearson has solidified third base to an extent. And Dardar has done a really good job for the last week and a half of swinging the bats. He was the SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. He swung the bat really well against Kentucky, was 6 of 10 and reached base 9 times in 3 games. And that included a long 400-plus foot home run over the bleachers in right field. He started the post-rain delay festivities last night with a triple. And he's playing with some energy. He's playing with some juice. And I talked about that yesterday. I don't need 35-foot bat flips every day. But if you're going to give me a guy that's fired up to be out there, that's fired up to play for LSU, that's hitting the ball hard, that's playing hard, that's what you need. And he also made a decent defensive play last night where he had to move a little bit to his left on a sharp ground ball, and he made a nice backhand flip for a double play on kind of the same play that Braden Simpson over the weekend, or Trent Caraway over the weekend, fielded and spun and made a bad feed to Milam, who barely held the bag and couldn't turn a double play. It was well done by Dardar in that instance. He also made a couple of decent plays in the field, fielding ground balls over the weekend. Now, he did spike a double play ball on Sunday, which was not good. But, I'm not asking for perfect defense from Seth Dardar, but I am asking for him to be some version of a guy last year that hit 326 with 13 homers on an NCAA tournament team last year. That's not a fluke for a guy to hit 326 with 13 home runs for Kansas State, who was a pretty good team. He didn't do it in the Summit League. He didn't do it in the Ivy League. He did it in the Big 12. So I'm not telling you that John Pearson and Seth Dardar are locked in at third base and second base for the duration of the season, and they're going to be monster forces for the LSU lineup and continue racking up Player of the Week awards from the SEC. But they are hitting the ball hard. And one's right-handed, one's left-handed, so you don't lose too much there. It's not like you're jamming two left-handed bats or jamming two right-handed bats in there. You're staying a little bit balanced. And maybe you just need to give those guys at bats. It's going to come at the expense of Trent Caraway. It's going to come at the expense of Tanner Reeves and Braden Simpson, but that's what you got to do. And you had a lineup that was in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And you may have some of that with Cerna and Aaron Beatty and Braun, who are all going to get at bats moving forward. But right now, it's got to be Pearson and Dardar, and those guys have been better. So maybe it was a little bit of staying warm. I'm not even going to use hot. Maybe it was just a little bit of staying warm for this LSU team. Because as I said at the top of the show, I'm not going to equate scoring 16 runs on Southern to how well you're going to light up Arvidsson and Coons on Friday afternoon in Knoxville. Those guys have big-time stuff. Tegan Coons has been their Friday night starter. He's going to come out of the bullpen likely on Friday, and he's going to be throwing 98 with a slider. And Arvidsson's been a really good arm for them. And, those guys are better than anybody Southern has or probably has ever had. So, I get it. But there's something to confidence, there's something to vibes, there's something to getting hot. And if you can add Pearson and Dardar with a little bit of consistent punch, they're not hitting second here. I need these guys to hit in the middle and down in the lineup and give a little bit of length. Give Brown some help. Give Curiel some help. Maybe Milam comes out of it. He's hit 3 home runs recently and did it from both sides of the plate last night. And now all of a sudden you're starting to find a little something out of a lineup. We'll get to this in power rankings coming up in an hour and 15 minutes. There are a lot of teams in the SEC that are struggling to find an identity, that have major flaws, that have been swept in a weekend or have lost 2 weekends. LSU's not alone in that spot. Now, they got to take care of their own corner of the store and not worry about what everybody else is doing, but I'm worried about what LSU's doing right now, and that was a little bit better from an offensive perspective. And now you put that with a really nice showing on Saturday, 7-0 win, a big offensive showing against Kentucky's bullpen on Sunday, swung the bats well against Louisiana Tech last midweek, swung the bats well against Southern. That's 4 out of 5 games. You've been decent. The SEC ace that you saw last Friday kind of puts you in a blender for a bit. But 4 out of 5 games, you've been pretty good. You've scored 15 runs in 3 of those games. Maybe there's something there. I'm not declaring it. I'm hoping. And I thought last night, though it was a brutal start to get down 6-1, to walk guys and to drop a ball in left field. It's a tough watch sometimes. But maybe they're starting to find a little bit of that offensive punch that you saw in the first 2 weeks of the season when they went to Jacksonville, when they opened the season with a terrible Milwaukee team. Maybe there's something there and they can become a little bit more offensive than they have been. That's the hope. And hopefully they feel that way when they get on the plane and head up to Knoxville. I guess tomorrow they'll head that way for a Friday series. I think LSU is the only team, LSU and Tennessee, the only 2 teams in the SEC that are not playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday on Easter weekend. That's usually how things go. I can't swear by that. I'll look for it in the commercial break, and certainly tomorrow when we talk to Joe, we'll discuss that as well. But LSU is Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week, which is rare. I'll put this in your ear for a second, and I'm not a weatherman, and things change very quickly. The forecast for Knoxville is not great on Sunday. Would not flatline stun me if they decided to bump things up and play 2 on Saturday, but that's out of my jurisdiction and certainly hasn't been decided at this point. So we'll see. But LSU's scheduled right now for Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Knoxville. All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, let's hear from Lane Kiffin. Yesterday he met with the media, and we'll kind of discuss some of the things that he had to say. It's a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust, FABT.com, FABT.com. Started up in 1910. 116 years later, they are still humming. 25 locations is what they've grown throughout southeast Louisiana, where you're down the bayou in St. John, Lafourche, Terrebonne Parish, or maybe you're on the I-12 corridor in St. Tammany or Tangipahoa. Maybe you're in Metairie. Maybe you're right here around Baton Rouge, Jones Creek, Dutchtown. There is a location near you. It is a community bank. You're looking for a personal loan, they got you covered at First American Bank and Trust. You're looking for a personal loan, they got you covered at First American Bank and Trust. Just because they're a local bank doesn't mean they don't have the resources to help you out. They do. They've got 25 locations, but they're with that local feel. Every decision that's made at First American Bank and Trust is made locally right here in southeast Louisiana. So walk into one of those locations nearest you today or check them out online at FABT.com. That's First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Do What If Wednesday here coming up in about 10 minutes. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Let me remind you about GoTro's Outdoor Power as well. GoTro's Outdoor Power. You can find them online at GoTrosOnline.com. Stop by 2 locations, Baton Rouge on Airline Highway, and then, of course, in Gonzales. GoTro family. Been in business 22 years here in Baton Rouge. Family-owned, family-operated. And look, you're not talking about just a little bitty old business here that they just trying to keep the doors open. You're talking about the National Hustler Dealer of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. You're talking about the largest hustler inventory in the state by a long shot. You're talking about the largest parts inventory in Louisiana. So, yeah, it is a family business, and it's one that you should patronize if you're looking for a new zero-turn mower. But it's not mom-and-pop shop over there. They know what they're doing. And so you may be able to get that zero-turn mower from the big box store. Sure, you can probably make that happen. What happens when you walk out the door? Do you have that customer service? Do you have the trucks that are coming to help you with parts, with delivery of your machinery if you don't have that trailer available to you? That makes a difference at GoTro's Outdoor Power. Go see them, Airline Highway in Baton Rouge, course in Gonzales as well. GoTrosOnline.com. GoTrosOnline.com. All right, Lane Kiffin met with the media yesterday. He's doing so every single Tuesday. The players will meet with the media on Thursday. That's their practice schedule, Tuesday and Thursday throughout the spring. And he kind of gave an update on just how things are going.
I think that practice has gone really well. I think they're really competitive. I think that anytime you go somewhere, it has nothing to do with previous staff. You have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do besides what is the obvious that everybody thinks about roster changes and portal and additions, but how you practice and how players think, to fit into the way that you want things done. So, that's a constant battle for us. So I can see that improving out there, understanding how to practice. We want to practice really physical, but also protect the team and how that we practice. And that maybe sounds really easy, but it's challenging to get right to that middle spot of how to do that.
It's pretty obvious that far more of the learning curve is going to come on the offensive side of the football. I mean, on defense, you do have a number of new players, but you've got some holdovers, and you've got the staff that essentially was here last year. And so even though there are newcomers, they've got a system to be plugged into. Everybody is learning everything on the offensive side of things. And so Lane Kiffin talked yesterday kind of about his background in learning from these elite minds that he's been around with Pete Carroll and with Nick Saban, with his dad. And he's been with those fantastic defensive minds that have molded him as an offensive coach to cultivate his system.
I was very blessed on all those circumstances, to be born with a defensive father that communicated stuff so well. And so I would sit there and he would talk about problem plays and make cut-ups when I was really young. And so to see that and then go to Pete Carroll and then to Nick Saban, to have that and not just you're around them, but then you're the offensive coordinator for both, win national championships with both. So you're able to learn all that, somebody, like you mentioned earlier, like a cheat code of something that really was. So I'm very fortunate that way. And that stuff still happens. We still see defenses and things, obviously Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, but my dad, that, systems that people are running or certain defenses. And then we drop back to things over the years that we remember gave them problems.
Let's talk about some of the positions that they're working on. And one position that just got a complete overhaul, not unlike quarterback, and not really unlike the offensive line. But wide receiver is just completely new out there. When we go out to practice and we're looking at that group, if you don't have a roster in front of you, you can't really tell because they got a bunch of guys between 5'10" and 6'1" that can really run. And so Lane Kiffin talked about going to get some wide receivers and what he's seen from that group thus far.
Yeah, I think explosive plays are a very critical factor, always have been as you look at analytics, into winning games and being successful defensively, limiting them and having them on offense. And that's not just what you draw up. You got to have the players. So to add players that have made a number of explosive plays in the receiver room was important. We try to balance the room more. If you think of it as like, here's your cap number for a room, instead of being really top heavy with 1 and 2 and then not having depth, I think when we've been our best, it's because we've had 4 to 5 to 6 receivers that can all play really well. And so that's what we're striving for here.
And look, you look at his performance at Ole Miss last year, and it bears it out. Now, keep in mind that Ole Miss did play an extra game compared to a lot of their peers. They played 15 games. But still, when you lead the nation in 10-plus yard catches, in 20-plus yard catches, and 30-plus yard catches, you lead the country in those numbers, 10, 20, and 30. You have built that into your offense. It is something that you make a point of emphasis, and he certainly has. And so the question is, do you have those 4 to 6 receivers that you're looking for to make those big plays?
I think we have a chance to do that with the players that are out there because then we're the best for the long run of the season and potentially into postseason. And I think you got to look at that, especially as schedules get harder with the 9th game. And basically here, the way it's set up, you really have 10 basically SEC games. So it's really critical the numbers that you have there and that you can stay healthy throughout the season. And when you go to your second guys, that you're still able to put pressure on defense.
You look at this receiver group they brought in. Jace Brown has been a big play guy at Kansas State. Jackson Harris was a big play guy at Hawaii. It's a different level, but same type deal. Trey Wilson, when he was healthy, was certainly a big play guy at Florida. Lane Kiffin brought Winnie Watkins in to be a big play guy, and they feel like he can be that. Phillip Wright has elite speed and was brought to LSU as a track guy who can make plays. And the thing that I've always talked about when I watch Lane Kiffin offenses, and no one is here to listen to me talk about coverages and that type of deal. That's the morning show's lane, and they're awesome at it. But I can watch Lane Kiffin over the years and understand that what he does is he creates indecision with coordinators and players on the field on defense because he moves quickly and because his concepts are difficult. And that goes back to his time with his dad, with Nick Saban, with Pete Carroll, defensive guys, and they would tell him what they didn't like. And so Lane Kiffin's idea is to get into what you don't like, do it quickly so that you have to think about what it is you're going to do. And at that point, he's got you beat. And the best way to make indecision hurt is to put speed on the field. Because if you've got something that's slow developing or a player that's slow and the defense is indecisive, they can catch up and close. If you've got somebody that's a home run hitter and they're indecisive, they're gone. They're by you. Nothing you can do. So that's obviously an emphasis from Lane Kiffin. And they took guys from Hawaii and Old Dominion and Kansas State and Troy and a Florida D2 school. And they taking wide receivers from everywhere. Tyree Holloway is the one I was talking about from the Florida school from a different level. But they all kind of fit a profile. It's like we're gonna go. We're gonna go fast. And we're going to make some big plays happen. So that's kind of a look at the offense. But I also wanted to look into team chemistry and trying to cultivate that because that's also a challenge when you're trying to achieve very, very high goals with a bunch of new people. This is not new for Lane Kiffin. He's tried to do this a couple times at Ole Miss as well, but certainly trying to do it here. How's that team chemistry going early in spring?
I think we constantly work on that. I'm not as concerned chemistry yet because we got to get fundamentals. And like we just talked about, don't fight in practice. We're starting from the beginning, footwork, how to tackle without tackling, all these things. And then I think chemistry is more down the road and more of a training camp type of thing, in my opinion.
So we'll see. Right now, they're just trying to make guys better at football. And I think the evaluation period for these coaches is very, very important during the spring practice as well. It's spring ball. It's 3 weeks. Get in there, get some work done. We'll write about it. We'll talk about it. Then you got to go get yourself in shape over the summer, and then it's really time to get to work in terms of setting your depth chart in the fall and creating a game plan for Clemson week 1. You don't have time to ramp this thing up. Lane Kiffin did say yesterday, like, it takes time. He said that he was careful to say it doesn't take years, but it does take time. And the issue for LSU is you open with Clemson. And whether or not you think Clemson is going to be 8th in the ACC or national title contender, I promise they're going to have some pretty good players out there. I promise they're going to have some pretty expensive coordinators that are going to be looking to score a big win. And you also have to go to Oxford in September. And there is early season action against really good teams. So you got to figure it out for Clemson and Ole Miss and Texas A&M early in the season. I'm not saying you got to figure it out right now, and obviously Lane Kiffin knows that, but you got to get it moving, and they are moving and shaking. We'll be back out there tomorrow for a Thursday workout and get your practice report on LouisianaSports.net, and we'll certainly talk about it here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Our Wednesday shows brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. They're online at builtbyrenaissance.com, builtbyrenaissance.com. Looking to get in that pool? You can do it at builtbyrenaissance.com. Got time before the summer months really heat up. Just give Joey Blanchard a call, shoot him a text. I got his number. I'll tell you about it every single Wednesday. It's, of course, 225-252-7455, 225-252-7745. It's builtbyrenaissance.com. Renaissance Homes and Pools. They bring you our Wednesday shows. We'll come back with What If Wednesday next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Just been there since October 1. That's been a car dealership in the past, but under new ownership as of October 1. But they found their groove there in St. Francisville. So if you're looking for a Chevy Silverado and you want up to $11,000 off MSRP, Fabry Chevrolet GMC. You want a GMC Sierra up to $13,000 off MSRP, Fabry Chevrolet GMC. The Sierra is also 0.0 APR financing as well. You're just not going to beat that. It's not doable. But go by and see them. You're going to get a great buying experience at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. And have great service after sale. Their service department services all makes. So whatever issue you've got as you get ready for that summer road trip, kids are about to get out of school here in the next few weeks, go by Fabry Chevrolet GMC and see them. You can see the entire inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com. It's FabryChevrolet.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Lifetime Roofing, lifetimeroofingla.com is the website. And if you're looking to sell your home and you feel like you may need a new roof on that home to help the resale value, you just don't feel like you're going to get what you're looking for with that old roof, well, contact the folks at Lifetime Roofing and they'll go up there and see for you. They'll check out the status of that roof and they'll tell you, like, maybe you just need a tune-up. Maybe you just need to fortify it. You can certainly note that when you go to sell things. Maybe you need a new roof. And you don't qualify to file a claim for that, so you're going to buy it retail. And they can do that for you at Lifetime Roofing, and they can finance it for you 0% up to 18 months, so you don't have to come out of pocket for the whole thing immediately. They're happy to do that for you. And look, you're going to get professional installation of that. You're going to get a local company you can trust. And they're going to have a lifetime workmanship warranty on it. That includes materials backed by Certainteed, one of the oldest, most trusted names in building materials. Also, maybe you're not looking to sell your home, but you're looking for gutters, you're looking for siding, you're looking for windows. Lifetime Roofing can handle all of those as well. Again, gutters, siding, windows. It's all available there at Lifetime Roofing. You can find them online at lifetimeroofingla.com. Check them out online, lifetimeroofingla.com. All right, Koki Riley coming up in 25 minutes. So was texted back and forth with Koki earlier. They met with Jay Johnson at noon, and Jay gave apparently a really good answer on Major League Baseball that I'll want to hear what Koki had to say. There's an update on Cooper Moore as well. He will not travel to Knoxville this weekend. That's expected. This is right about the window where he can start picking up a baseball again based on what they said a week and a half ago when he missed that start. So we'll see what Jay Johnson had to say about all that, and look forward to LSU and Tennessee with Koki coming up here in 25 minutes. But right now, it's What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
All right, so what if the official gave Dan Hurley the tech right after the logo 3?
I mean, you know my feeling on this.
Oh, I know your feeling.
You can't do it.
Oh,
There are still people, lots of them, because they come out and tweet at me constantly about how you have to play by the rules and you can't say this and you can't say that and you can't do this and it's breaking the rules. There were so many LSU fans last year that thought it was just a really good thing that Coastal Carolina's coach got tossed in the first inning of the national final on that Sunday, because you can't say that. You can't argue balls and strikes. You can't argue challenge. You can't say that. It's like, well, what do you mean you can't? Like, you could, and the ump could just not do anything. And so in this instance, you hit an emotional shot like that. I realize that Hurley's a bit of a clown out there. I realize he's not exactly the best people person ever. And some of his antics I don't approve of, but I'm not giving technicals for almost anything. I will say this unequivocally. There is nothing you can say to me as a coach or a player, if I'm an official, that I'm giving a T. Nothing.
Whoa.
Nothing. What do my feelings have to do with the score of the game? Nothing.
You're a
So
strong
just
man, Hunt.
go away.
You're a strong
Just
man.
don't listen. Who cares? I would if some of these coaches that blow a gasket,
Yeah.
I would have a hard time not laughing at them.
So like Mick Cronin.
Yeah, if he's just going nuts and dropping F-bombs here and there,
Yeah.
I would look at him and go, Mick, I'm not listening. So you can continue to talk, but I'm not. And if you want to I'm just telling you so you can coach your team instead of talking. I'm not going to listen. So carry on. It's just who cares?
You're a strong man. So Draymond Green was acted up. He's just like, all right, Draymond.
Draymond, just go to the bench. Just shut your mouth.
Okay. So what if Bryce Underwood didn't decommit from LSU?
Well, he obviously plays last year.
Oh, yeah, he does.
And the question is, like, if he plays last year and it's just okay, like it was last year for Michigan, like, is that enough for the brass at LSU, the booster base, to believe in the next 2 to 3 years with Brian Kelly?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And my answer to that would be, I think it changes the equation.
Okay.
I think when you looked at this and said, okay, you've got your quarterback, you've got your expensive roster, your number one portal class, and this is all you can come up with, and there's nothing here beyond this because all these guys are leaving, you're out. But if you have Underwood, and yeah, okay, a lot of these defensive guys are leaving. Yeah, okay, all these wide receivers are gone, but this guy could be he could be the ticket. Okay, you got him here. Let's help.
Okay.
I think it changes things. I can't swear to that, but it's what if. The quarterback is the one position that changes the whole thing. Like point guard's okay, Friday night starter okay, but quarterback's the deal. And so if you could sell that bill of goods, then okay, it makes sense. But I don't know.
All right, so I guess my question would be, if Underwood was on the roster and he was here this whole season, do you think it would have been sooner that he would have been inserted into the starting lineup?
No, it was going to be Nussmeier's team until he couldn't. Until he just couldn't do it anymore. And that was just going to be the way it was. I mean, because Kelly did that anyway. And it's not like Bryce Underwood had way more skins on the wall than Michael Van Buren. I'm not suggesting that their futures are the same.
Yeah.
But I'm suggesting that they were reasonably similar players last year. They were okay. Underwood didn't throw many touchdowns, threw some picks.
Yeah.
I mean, they both run pretty well. Like I don't think it would have been materially different. No true freshman, talented or what, is going to come in behind that offensive line and that offensive system against that schedule and look really good. It just wasn't going to happen.
All right, so what if LSU had not lost so badly to Texas A&M?
It wasn't the loss that did it. It was the way it looked. I said that. It was. You may have had to be in the stadium. There are a lot of people listening right now that were not in the stadium that felt how terrible that was. I've been in that stadium a lot of nights. And I just don't know how many I've seen it like that. I've seen Steve Spurrier do it. I've seen Saban do it, even though I wasn't there in 2020. I've seen him go 21-0 on him, and it just didn't look good. I've seen some bad in there. This was different. I wrote about it. I talked about it on the post game. I said it on my Monday show after, and he hadn't been fired. Well, he was fired the next day, actually.
Yeah, he was.
He hadn't been fired. He hadn't been fired from my post game show or my post game column.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really bad. And so if you lose that game 27-24, like he's clearly not fired on Sunday, and then he probably finishes out the year reasonably okay because it wasn't like Oklahoma was going to blow you out. They didn't have anything on offense. Yeah, they didn't have anything on offense. They won one game. They beat Van Buren threw a late touchdown against Arkansas. Yeah, and I don't know if they would have fired him or not after the season was over, but the margin of victory made it inevitable.
Okay, so what if you can only have one wing flavor and one dipping sauce?
I'm gonna get raked over the coals for this because it's not traditional, and it's just not. But
okay.
I'm going garlic parm.
Ooh, wet or?
I prefer that to be a dry rub.
Okay, dry rub. Okay.
And blue cheese. Blue cheese is the ticket.
Okay, I love blue cheese too. I can get jiggy with some blue cheese. Mine, I'm more either lemon pepper. I love me some lemon dry. Love lemon pepper dry. Or if I'm really got a little bit of money in my pocket, I might get a hot lemon pepper, mix it up. Might go wet with that one because the wet with the hot lemon, it just, oh my God, chef's kiss. So blue cheese.
I don't even eat wings with sauce, like saucy wings once a year.
Yeah.
I don't even eat them once a year.
Messy wing guy.
Yeah. I would rather just the dry stuff, and I only eat that a couple times a year.
Yep.
I like wings. I don't love wings. I don't have to have them.
I love me some wings.
Somebody orders wings, I'm eating the wings. I'm happy to eat wings. I don't seek wings.
So like if you're not on let's say a Friday night, like, I'm about to get some wings tonight.
Nah, that's not
you.
It's not gonna happen.
But if it's like I go to a tailgate, they got some wings there.
I'm definitely getting in. I'm getting in on that for sure.
Okay.
But it's just not something I seek out.
Okay.
All right, that's it for What If Wednesday. We come back. If you're a parent of somebody in youth baseball, youth softball, and they're pitching, and this is new to you, and I'm telling you, the injuries are happening younger and younger these days. I feel like it's that time of year to maybe have that discussion. Plus, you've got a situation where LSU's got a starting pitcher that doesn't have an elbow issue, but does have an arm issue. I want to talk about a little bit of that with Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Oxnard. And he's got some really cool information about the grant that they've got dealing with ACL injuries, which is also something that happens a good bit at the high school level and certainly at college and the pro level. So we'll talk to Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Oxnard when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Speaking of Oxnard, it's a brand new month. It's time to change the talking points up a little bit. If you're wondering which Oxnard location you need to go to for your particular symptoms, let's kind of lay it out for you. You got a primary care doctor. That's comprehensive. It's continuous. So you're looking for annual checkups, immunizations, maybe headache or low back pain, something that doesn't feel imminently dangerous to you. That's when you're looking at your primary care doctors. Urgent care needs more immediate attention. You're talking about sprains, lacerations, urinary pain, a cough, cold, sore throat, maybe burns that are minor, rashes. They're talking about non-life-threatening allergic reactions, that type of deal. And walk-ins are certainly welcome at Oxnard for that. Emergency care, that's chest pain. That's severe bleeding. That is head trauma. That's something that needs to be looked at immediately. That includes dehydration as it starts to get a little bit warmer, loss of consciousness, severe allergic reactions. These are the type of things that you're looking for your emergency room. They've also got 24/7 virtual care Oxnard with the options with their My Oxnard virtual visits. So it's an additional resource there to call Oxnard at 1-800-231-5257. But the point being, there's always an Oxnard location that is available to help you no matter what your situation may be. So find them online. That's Oxnard.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools, built by Renaissance.com, built by Renaissance.com. Time now for Sports Health, presented by Oxnard Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Dr. Jeremy Burnham, our guest from Oxnard. Dr. Burnham, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Hunt. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's baseball season, which is my favorite time of year, but I think in your world that may mean a little bit of elbow season as well. I was looking at my notes earlier. Like South Carolina's ace is out for the year. Texas A&M's best reliever's out for the year. LSU's got a weekend started down. Mississippi State's ace is missing a little bit of time as well. And all the injuries are a little bit different. And it's not just guys that throw 100 miles an hour that have elbow problems this time of year. I know that you all see that, especially with some youth sports.
Yeah, absolutely, Hunt. And, it's almost getting to the point where when is it not baseball season, right? Especially down here in the South. I think we have baseball year-round. But we do see the number of arm injuries ticking up this time of year, unfortunately.
Is that due to kids playing too much of the calendar, in your opinion, some of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're seeing these injuries earlier and earlier. I think it's difficult as somebody who loves sports and grew up around sports, and everything I do is kind of involved in that. There are a lot of sports lessons that are learned through learning how to deal with discomfort, right? And so that's part of sports, that's part of conditioning, learning how to work hard and do those things. But there are certain types of pain that's not discomfort that actually represents injury, and we want our parents and athletes to know what to look out for.
So what could a parent be on the lookout for when you're talking about potential baseball and arm injuries?
The biggest thing is pain on the inside of the elbow. I mean, you mentioned you don't have to be throwing 100 miles an hour to injure the inside of your elbow. A lot of people hear about Tommy John surgery. Tommy John surgery is something that's done to heal or to repair a torn ulnar collateral ligament, a torn UCL. So it's a ligament on the inside of the elbow. And it used to be something that you would see in more mature athletes, professional, collegiate baseball pitchers would have these injuries, but we're starting to see them in younger athletes as well. A lot of these athletes are still growing, and their body really hasn't caught up to them. And so I tell all my patients, all their parents, if your kid has pain on the inside of their elbow when they're throwing, that's not just discomfort to push through. That's something to take a break, to stop throwing. And then if it doesn't go away, you got to get that assessed.
No question about it. And you see so many kids that are specializing at such a young age that can cause burnout just mentally, and then physically there can be some lingering effects of that as well. You sent me some interesting statistics on NFL first-round picks. Like 88% of them were multi-sport high school athletes, and less than half of pro baseball athletes specialized in baseball, which surprised me a little bit because of just how much baseball you play. You can't really play a lot of spring football, but baseball kind of goes year-round. But there's just a lot of value medically, in your estimation, in terms of just mixing things up and doing different things year-round.
Yeah, that's right. And, we work real closely with Dr. James Andrews, and he was one of the people that really first really popularized this Tommy John surgery. He was having a lot of athletes from all over the country come to him. And he's really made it a point later in his career as a Louisiana native to really try to make an impact on the youth injury rates. And one of the things that he always says is that you need to take, as a youth athlete, you need to take 2 or 3 months minimum, and he recommends 4 months, off of whatever sport you're playing, particularly baseball, because of the torque that it puts on the elbow. That's a hard thing to do. I mean, I have young kids that are playing sports, and there's a lot of pressure, peer pressure, I think, both for my kids and as a parent for your kid to play one sport 12 months a year. But based on what I see in my clinic, it's not the right thing. You mentioned the vast majority of NFL first-round picks, they did not specialize in a single sport in high school. Less than half of Major League Baseball athletes specialized in baseball. And the interesting thing is the people that did specialize in baseball in high school, they did not start specializing in baseball until the average age of 14. And then if you dig into those stats a little more, 70% of youth athletes quit sports completely by the age of 13. And that's a pretty big deal. And if you specialize in a sport before the age of 12, your risk of dropping out of sports completely is more than double somebody that plays multiple sports. And so there are just tremendous benefits to playing more than one sport. I think if baseball is your sport, I think playing other sports probably helps you in baseball more than you realize, in addition to helps you stay healthy.
I know for a fact that Jay Johnson loves guys that played quarterback in high school, loves guys that are athletic enough to do other things for sure. He's head coach of the best program in the country, right down the street there.
That's right.
You also told me an interesting deal about a grant that y'all were awarded last week. When I think about ACL recovery, I don't immediately think about oxygen, but that's something obviously that's vital. Can you tell us what y'all are working on?
Yeah, so, as you know, we have an ACL Center of Excellence over at the Elite Training Complex, and a big focus, speaking of youth injuries, right, a big focus of ours is trying to prevent ACL injuries. And we had a guest speaker down several months ago that is one of the Cleveland Browns team doctors. And, Cleveland is really kind of a hub for orthopedic and sports innovation. So they came down here to do a guest lecture and give us a talk. And while we were discussing things, they were talking about some of the technology they're using around ACL injury prevention and ACL recovery. And one of the things is they were looking at some surface-mounted oxygen sensors to try to look at how well that muscle is oxygenating. And so, it sparked an interest in our research team, and we applied for a competitive grant with the Louisiana Orthopedic Association. Tommy Drazik is the primary investigator on that grant. He's from Wyoming. He's going to be an orthopedic surgeon. He just graduated med school, and he's spending a year with us basically to help develop some of these research protocols. And so he applied for this grant, competitive process, and we got some grant funding. And what we'll be doing is using these wearables on the quad muscles. The thigh muscles are so important to protect the knee. And that's whether you're rehabbing from an ACL injury or whether you're playing sports and you've never torn your ACL. And so we're going to be using this technology to try to monitor how well that oxygen gets to the thigh muscle and help change what we do from a rehab and an injury prevention standpoint to try to have better outcomes.
It's incredible stuff that happened right here in our backyard in Baton Rouge. Dr. Burnham, that's exciting, and we appreciate a little bit of time. We'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. Great talking to you, Hunt.
Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Oxnard, good enough to give us a little bit of time here. It's something that I'll have to deal with as a dad here moving forward. I got a kid that's just eating up with sports and is getting into T-ball right now where there's no rules, regulations, or anything. But on this path, he's going to be playing sports around the clock as my sincere guest. And so I know there's a lot of parents that listen, certainly as we get into carpool line hours is what we kind of work here from 1 to 3. There are some things that you got to look out for, and especially as chilly as it is when we start baseball around here. You're starting things in January and February when it's cold, and guys, young people may not have gotten their arms ready to get going. Major League Baseball takes things really seriously, and it's a very slow ramp up. But if your kid's got some pain in the elbow, not really cool to fight through it. Something you probably want to look at because it doesn't. Now you're looking at kids 13, 14, 15, maybe having to go under the knife because things that happen with the elbow. So thought it was a good idea to get Dr. Burnham on to talk about that. And we appreciate a little bit of his time. Missed any of our first hour, talked to LSU baseball at the top, some Lane Kiffin, LSU football there as well. You can catch all that Hunt on LSU on YouTube, and certainly wherever you find your podcasts. A second hour, we got a lot to get to. Koki Riley's going to be with us in 5 minutes. He was with Jay Johnson at noon, so we'll hear the latest from the LSU head baseball coaches. They get ready to go to Tennessee. Also talk a little bit of Saints, and we got my SEC baseball power rankings coming your way in 35 minutes. Our Wednesday shows are brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Find them at builtbyrenaissance.com. After Sports Center, we're back for hour 2.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Call Neil and Melissa. Get that Generac home standby generator put in. It just gives you the peace of mind to know that you're not going to lose power. It happens all the time down here. Sometimes you don't even know why, but sometimes we do. You got those nasty summer thunderstorms that roll through that can knock your power out. We had one come through as Paul Skeens was towing the rubber against Tennessee in the College World Series opener at my house. I had to leave. Not great. You also have hurricanes. We know that. You also have winter events like we did. Sometimes bad drivers hit electrical poles. It's a nuisance at best, and it's a big, big deal at worst if you've got young kids at home and you don't have air conditioning or you try to work at home and you can't get that done. Get that Generac home standby generator put in from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389 in Gonzales. Locally owned and operated for over 40 years. It's Boudreaux's Electrical. You can find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com.